of Sean O'Malley?
For me, it's hard to like him outside the ring. It's really like he's not what he should be. He's not what he's presented as. He doesn't have the kind of wit of a big persona. He doesn't have the presence of a big persona either. All he has is funny coloured hair that's sometimes an afro.
Right. Yeah. You
and a leather jacket.
Yes, which Merab wore very well, I must say. You opened your response with the sigh of a 30-year-old man, or a man in his 30s, I should say, talking about something that those darn kids are into.
I've revealed it.
Yes,
yeah,
we are in our 30s, and Sean O'Malley's personality, I've got to say, for me as well, Tom, not my cup of tea. However, I think the hype is mostly real with Sean O'Malley, in terms of most parts of his game. But there's something that I cottoned on to this week that I was thinking about, like, that Piotr Jan fight was superb. His performance against Jan was absolutely incredible. But there's two fights that I particularly want to think about in relation to Sean O'Malley, and that's the Marlon Vera fight, and that's the Pedro Munoz fight. The two times he fought ranked opponents, top dogs, top of the division, and in one of them he got mashed by Chito Vera, like mashed. Yeah. I don't care what he says, and I don't care what his fans say, like you. He got mashed in that fight. And then Pedro Munoz, who did a very simple thing, which was follow a game plan of switching stances with Sean O'Malley and throwing low leg kicks. Now he's facing Aljamain Sterling, someone who's trying to make a claim as the best bantamweight to ever do it. And I wonder, what is Sean O'Malley's game plan for this fight? Like, what is going to be his approach to it tactically and mentally going into this? Do you think that Sterling's a huge hurdle for him to overcome, first off?
I think that's undoubtable. We've got to recognise Sterling now where he sits in the division, what he has accomplished, and that is, he's a big hurdle for anyone. He's a huge challenge, and he showed that in the way that he overcame Cejudo, or at least he did in some people's books, and that the judges were amongst them. So, he's still there. He's still the man in the division. And O'Malley, well, he cited two fights in which he's had difficulties. Yes, Munoz and Vera. They present a very different challenge to Sterling. We haven't seen him fight anyone like Aljamain Sterling. And that's without recognising Sterling as the best, which I think he's shown that he is. I'm just talking about a wrestler, Joe. Any pressure wrestler, anyone who can take your back and keep you in that position, unable to escape, once he's got the dominant position. There is no comparison on O'Malley's record. So that's a big unknown.
That's a really good point about that. And, that goes...
But Joe, let me just add one more thing there. I think you think, and I also think, and most people think, that they do know. That they do know what happens when O'Malley meets Sterling. My only question would be, how? How do we know? It's an assumption. Maybe O'Malley is something of Israel Adesanya, the bantamweight version. He's been working on his game. He's got a deadly sprawl. He keeps his centre of gravity where it needs to be. He can get off the cage. He can stay in the, within the lines in the octagon. He's got fantastic movement. We know that. So maybe it doesn't go how I suspect you think it's going to go.
Well, the thing with O'Malley, and he hasn't faced a wrestler yet, that's for certain, but he's shown lots of things that would make you think that he can have success against a wrestler. Now, he was taken down a lot against Piotr Jan. Piotr Jan took him down, I think, 6 times. Quite a lot of control time in there. Yet, when there wasn't control time, O'Malley was landing significant shots. He was landing superbly on Piotr Jan as well. And do you know what he did, and we saw in that fight, is how good his lateral movement is. His control of his lateral movement. Now, I think we can assume, quite rightly, that Sterling's going to come out like a house on fire, I think, against O'Malley. First round, he's just like, I'm going to get my hands on him, I'm going to wrestle him. And it's going to be wide hands, jab in just to try and get jab, doesn't even care if he lands, so he can maybe just grab him. That sort of front kick up the middle from the rear leg, that Sterling throws just to push him back to get him up against the fence. And we've seen O'Malley in that position up against the fence. His lateral steps are really, really good. And by that, I mean his lateral steps aren't too big so that he gets squared up, and he's not too little so that he's moving but not really moving away. He hits that sweet spot perfectly. And what he does with that lateral movement is that because his step isn't so big that he gets squared up, he's able to actually disguise the distance in that he's able to then slightly switch stances in his lateral movement. So let's say he's moving to his left. He will then make his right leg the lead leg so that he can be slightly southpaw. Or he'll be slightly orthodox if he makes his left leg the lead leg ever so slightly. And it will then create a confusion for you of like, he's throwing out his right hand and you think it's a jab, but really it's a power punch. He's really good at disguising his stance switches in those lateral movements.
Yeah, Saif Saud did a great job breaking that down on the UFC's YouTube channel.
Oh, damn.
Big nod to you, Joe. Yeah, he echoed those sentiments.
Did he really?
He might have been onto the phone to you beforehand. I don't know how big we've got yet, Joe. I suspect we're really big. So no worries, Saif. You know, we got you. Come to us.
I
next
feel
time
big.
If you're in a pickle. Yeah, that's exactly what Saif Saud had to say. You know, of course, he disguises their weapons. He upsets you, pulls you into those traps. You know, where you're concentrated on the weapons that O'Malley actually has out of both stances. You know, he of course he has a natural preference, but he can really hurt you from positions you don't expect it because of those subtle changes of stance that obviously create different weapons on either side. And if you're not a striker on that same level, it's very easy to find yourself with your guard in the wrong position, eating a big shot. He can also pull you into spinning back kicks. He throws out the occasional wheel kick. You know, he's quite a creative striker. And if you go with him, he might upset you. However, it's not so easy to fight with that kind of flair and freedom when the threat of your opponent reading it is so severe. When the consequences mean you're on your back, hopefully, because you could be on your front, Joe, and you might have Aljamain Sterling with a triangle wrapped around your body, hands around your neck, squeezing you unconscious.
Yeah. I mean, that's
a little bit too flamboyant. Your fancy little back kick, Joe. Nah, don't care about that. You're on your back, or worse, you're on your front. So it's not easy to fight with that kind of flair, that kind of freedom when those are the consequences.
Yeah, I mean, that's the interesting thing about Sterling is that his grappling is such that, you know, he doesn't really care about mounting or anything like that. He prefers the back. Like, he prefers to take the back. And there have been times where he's had people on their back and he's kind of like let them get up so that he can attack the back from there. I mean, the TJ Dillashaw one was one of those, but again, that was a one-armed fighter, quite literally a one-armed fighter against TJ Dillashaw.
Well, I think it's important time now to highlight Petr Yan and his trials and tribulations with Sterling in their second fight. Of course, Yan was a man who was well equipped to negate Sterling's style, but he was so frantic in scrambling and escaping positions that in those little kind of transactional moments, those in-between moments, he just left a little opening for Sterling to take the back, and of course he lapped it up and won the fight in doing so.
Well, remember the first time...
It's hard to imagine that...
Remember the first time that him and Yan fought?
O'Malley won't make those mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, remember the first time Yan fought Sterling? He took Sterling down a lot. Trips, takedowns, just to, like, tire him out. Well, he didn't really particularly want the takedown. He just saw the opportunity there and took it, whereas Sterling was just not at it in terms of takedowns against Petr Yan. Now, admittedly, that's a different timeline now. I think Sterling went out way too hard in that fight, and he realised that as well. And has subsequently become a very good 5-round fighter. Paces himself really well. He won rounds 3 and 4 against Cejudo. I think it was 5 was the clear one for Cejudo at the end. Admittedly, it was the 5th round, but still 3 and 4 went to Sterling. And that's the other thing about Sean O'Malley. A man who has never fought in a main event is now fighting for the title. Something that I'm kind of inherently against. I'm kind of against guys not fighting for a title unless they've had a main event. Now,
is that you coming out anti-hype train? Is that... Come on.
No, I love
Look
hype
into your soul, Joe.
No, I love hype
exactly.
trains. I love hype.
Sometimes that's where they take you, Joe. They take you to the main event on a pay-per-view, even though you've never been on the main spot before. I'm not against that.
I mean, just in terms of fairness of what I think how a ranking should work, if we're going to apply it. But then obviously this is matchmaking. This is a matchmaking model. They're going to do this. But he's never fought 5 rounds. And he's facing a guy who is pretty good at fighting 5 rounds. Not the best. Obviously, that's Volkanovski. And then the second best is Max Holloway, which 2 names that I make pointed remarks towards. I mean, like, realistically, if O'Malley gets taken down consistently in this fight, you are just going to say Aljamain Sterling's going to win this fight from that point on, aren't you? Like, if he takes him down in rounds 1 and 2 and just tires him out, just like works him over and over and over, he's winning that fight. Like, there's not a way O'Malley will have that gas to land that sort of shot on him late in the fight to put him away. No?
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, we all remember when Edson Barbosa caught Kevin Lee after being absolutely dominated, on the mat for a couple of rounds. And then he caught him with a spinning wheel kick, I believe, and Kevin Lee did the famous chicken dance. Yeah. I would say O'Malley as a striker, not with the explosion of Barbosa, but certainly with the accuracy and the panache to land a shot like that laid on. So I wouldn't say that threat is entirely diminished, but of course you are talking about a Hail Mary shot there. A Hail Mary shot that failed for Barbosa, I should also state. Yeah. Kevin Lee went on to keep that train running. So it's a tough fight for O'Malley. It really is. However, I did say the same thing last time he fought against Petr Yan, and he shook the world for some people. Some people say that Petr Yan won the fight. And, maybe it's time to stop underestimating him, Joe. Are you ready to put your confidence in Sean O'Malley to win this fight on Saturday?
I do not underestimate this man at all. I think he is a very good striker. He doesn't really throw combinations. It's mostly single shots that he sets up.
Can I just pick you up on that, Joe? Very good. There's a bit of disdain in a comment like very good. Is he not elite?
Well, when I say elite, I'm thinking Israel Adesanya. The bar is set by certain guys. And are they at that bar? Are they at that level? No, he's not at the level of an Adesanya. No. I mean, would you say Pereira is elite?
Purely as a striker?
In MMA, I would say Adesanya is the bench. He's elite. He's the best. He's whatever. And O'Malley is not on that level. So he's very good, which I think is a fair thing to say. He doesn't throw combos, really. He throws single shots and he throws combos after he's hurt his opponents. Now, admittedly, the opponents that he lands those combos on are Chris Moutinho. Yeah? So, he's not really done that against Marlon Vera, Pedro Munoz. Did do it against Jan, where he did this really lovely when he switched stances. Sort of jab, feint, see the reaction, switch his stance as he moves back. Does the jab feint again to then hide the fact that he's actually stepped in and threw a cracking left. The one that rocked Jan really badly, I think it was in the 3rd round, where he sent Jan sort of stumbling. So he has that sort of power to him, and timing, and distance control. It's just, can he do that against Aljamain Sterling, Tom? That's the major question, because we know what Aljamain Sterling wants. He wants the back take. He wants to press you. He wants you off balance. He wants to be able to sort of tip you over and get to the back from there. That's what he wants to do. Sean O'Malley wants to disguise his movements and land big single shots and then follow up with combos from there.
I feel like, Joe, we're culminating in our predictions here, but I just wanted to get one thing in before we do give them out, and that's that I feel like we haven't given Sterling quite a fair shake here. We've kind of made him sound a little bit one-dimensional. And I think he's shown enough, especially in the last fight against Cejudo, that actually we know he's an unorthodox striker, But ultimately, that unorthodox nature is what upsets Cejudo, really.
Yeah.
Like, Cejudo had the tools, I think, to win that fight, but because of Sterling's style, and I'm not talking about a pressure wrestling style here, I'm talking about the way he threw his shots. It was him who overcame, at least according to the judges.
Well, the thing is, though, is that he wasn't really using his striking to take Cejudo down in the same frequency he probably would against Sean O'Malley. He knows he can't do that. And I think his striking, as you say, has got a funk to it. It's sort of, his jab has kind of got like a thudding sort of quality to it. Kind of like sticks it out there, leaves it out there to either then grab hold of you or to hide and impair your vision, which I think is really good. But yeah, I don't think that he has the layers of striking attack of O'Malley, and I think that's a fair thing to say. I think it is mostly to instigate grappling exchanges, but if he can do damage on the feet, he will. I just think he needs to avoid falling in love with that sort of thing, and he needs to still utilize it towards the game plan, which will be wrestling, to get to back takes, to get the body lock triangle, to hold that position and work from there, and maybe to get a sub, or to maybe mount ground and pound finish. Now, Tom,
Joe, give it to me. Give it to me.
Well, my prediction, Tom, you want it?
Yeah.
I'll give it to you straight. Sean O'Malley knockout win.
He's on tilt, listeners. This is what happens. This is what happens when you just pound Joe into the ground, win after win after win. This is where he goes. I have picked Aljamain Sterling to win this fight by submission, Joe.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. It was Sterling by decision that was the one that I was leaning towards. But I'm like, you know what? There's something about this O'Malley lad where I'm like, is there just a bit of zhuzh? Is there a bit of that in the air? Has he got some weird...
There is.
There is something about him.
It's possible. Be hyped, listeners. Watch this fight, because there really is. It's not a Hail Mary. It's not a shot to nothing. Could see something spectacular. And that isn't Aljamain Sterling wrapping up a, rear
body triangle. Yes, the body triangle and back takes. Yeah. No, it will be from O'Malley. But I don't know. It was more... It was a real vibes pick. That's what I've just gone for there, Tom. It was a very vibesy pick.
Joe, you're in a dark place in your life. The monotony, the dullness, the grind.
The grind of life.
Of the railway tracks, and you want a bit of pizzazz. You want a bit of fun. I understand, mate. You pick Sean O'Malley. You go for it.